Unless you're a Red Bull fan, you were probably pretty down following the first Formula One season race. Who could possibly stop Max Verstappen from winning his third World Championship? Yeah, that is the question you must ask yourself after one race, and the answer is most likely no one. Unless a miracle occurs, and in any event, Mercedes claims Red Bull already has the championship locked up. But new upgrades are coming, and they are coming fast. So which team could we see improving in the next couple of races? And what has caused the struggles of some of the teams? Let's dive in. Last year, Red Bull won 17 of 22 races. It's difficult to think the new car has become much better. The Red Bull is quick in turns and on straights. It's the ideal combo, and it's very difficult to create. You can only do it if you're really brilliant, and the true big competitors, Ferrari and Mercedes, still haven't worked out what makes the Red Bull so excellent in the first place. Red Bull intends to follow up with a slight improvement for the third race in Australia and a big upgrade for the fourth race in Baku, which would see Red Bull gaining even more advantage over their competitors. They need to act quickly if they want to play any part in the championship this year. Ferrari has carried over its previous issues into the new season. Mercedes eliminated the dreaded bouncing, albeit at the expense of downforce. If Ferrari had utilised a second pair of tyres in Q3, they could have tried more with Charles Leclerc and maybe up on pole. But the enjoyment wouldn't last for long as they were simply too slow in the race. Max Verstappen drove away from him to 8.7 seconds by the first pit stop in 12 laps. And by the second pit stop, Verstappen increased the gap to Leclerc by 22.2 seconds, and there had been just 32 laps. Red Bull was a second a lap faster than us, Charles Leclerc said after the race. Ferrari falls short of Red Bull in slow and medium speed turns, while Mercedes does the opposite. The Black Silver Arrows performs poorly in quick corners. As previously stated, the W14 lacks insufficient downforce. The back end is extremely unstable, causing Lewis Hamilton and George Russell to slide about in their cars. As a result, tyre wear increases. And now we have another thing in common. Ferrari has a tyre issue. According to Ferrari team leader Fred Vasseur, the issue is not one of concept, but one of setup. Things will improve for Ferrari with the proper car configuration. It's also the characteristics of the racetrack in Bahrain, with acceleration parts and bumpy asphalt that puts a lot of pressure on the back tyres. Yet, there is an unmistakable parallel. Haas owns half of Ferrari and, like Ferrari, has a tyre issue. Both are fine on a lap, but the tyres are a killer over long distances. Haas obtains the front and rear suspension, as well as the engine and gearbox from Ferrari. All of the radiators are placed as near to the ground as feasible by Ferrari and Haas. As a result, both have a comparable vehicle centre of gravity. As the front wheels turn in, both cars are meant to lose downforce. The engineers must then counterbalance this with the rear axle configuration. This, in turn, might lead to tyre issues. Regrettably, Ferrari reliability remains an issue. Leclerc's retirement, apparently due to battery failure, was a difficult pill to chew. The Scuderia is currently looking into the matter. They're not yet certain what led to the harm which resulted in Leclerc's retirement. In any event, Ferrari and Leclerc had to swallow a harsh pill. 15 certain points are gone, and Leclerc will very certainly face a grid penalty in one of the upcoming races. The team boss was eager to reassure. He believes the result at the Saudi Arabian Grand Prix can already be an improvement, as Ferrari is hoping that the smooth asphalt and several rapid turns would contribute to a rebirth of the Scuderia. What he wants is to keep the Ferrari vehicle idea. There are no panic responses. That looks to be the best idea for now. Because, as we have seen, Ferrari had a fast car on a fast lap. After all, qualifying on the track this year demonstrated this. Having said that, the tyres on one lap clearly masked up one or two of Ferrari's shortcomings. It's only the tyre issue in the race that Ferrari has to sort out. Ferrari driver Carlos Sainz believes Red Bull and Aston Martin have discovered something, and their engineers are still baffled by it. Mercedes, on the other hand, have more issues. Everything has been very bad, team manager Toto Wolff stated after the race. Mercedes was more than 0.6 of a second slower in qualifying, but neither Lewis Hamilton nor George Russell had a pair of soft tyres. And both couldn't manage a faultless lap, so the margin to Red Bull might have been as much as 3 to 0.4 of a second. So that's not nearly as horrible as it might be. In any case, Mercedes has improved on a lap. Yet this is the key issue. It was far worse throughout the race. According to team boss Wolff, the distance to Red Bull has even quadrupled, if not tripled. We can see that if we look at Hamilton's time. On 57 racing laps, he grabbed the checkered flag 51 seconds after Verstappen. compared to the 9 seconds he was behind on Charles Leclerc in the first race last season. Mercedes and Ferrari assert that their new cars have fulfilled development goals. What the wind tunnel produces has arrived on the racing circuit, but the Red Bull is driving on another level. Ferrari has improved by just half a second since the 2022 Bahrain qualifying. Mercedes had a gain of 7/10, while Red Bull comes in with a second of gain time. The Red Bull RB19 glides so low over the asphalt that the opposition is left speechless. Ferrari and Mercedes would either bounce or smash the board on the underbody if they got that low. A minor advice would be to set the car 10mm lower. Can the team's current cars, except for Red Bull, comprehend this? Mercedes team boss Toto Wolff has already discarded that idea for the W14. He believes that no team will ever be able to compete with it, leaving Red Bull in a league of their own in terms of aero development. Mercedes intends to make a quick choice in this week on which path to go. What matters, Toto Wolff says, are the methods and what may be accomplished in the long run. And what about George Russell? If we have to sacrifice some races or parts of this season to give us a chance to battle for wins in the second half of the season or even next year, he adds of the new development strategy. So that's a fairly bold statement. If Mercedes must use all their power of Brackley, they must go all out. A first significant step of development might already be in emulations. We are expecting to see it in Miami in early May. Russell sounded somewhat negative. He is aware of his team's predicament and that all their opponents are similarly far away from Red Bull. But upgrading the current car fast is the one thing Ferrari and Mercedes need if they both want to compete for wins and the World Championship. So what about the rest of the field? McLaren has set 4th place in the Team World Championship as its season aim. Yet after only one race, it seems to be almost impossible for the racing squad. And what about Alpine? They also aspire to come in 4th place. They intended to duplicate their success from last year, but the distance between them and the best teams has expanded rather than closed. They're a long distance from the big three, and Aston Martin has stepped in between them. McLaren claims to have been severely harmed by the new underbody rules, which require the outside borders to be increased by 15mm this year. Of course, this comes at a cost in terms of downforce. However, all of the other teams had to go through it as well. McLaren is essentially devoid of downforce. This is most visible in the slow and medium-fast corners. Also, the McLaren generates much too much drag. The two Papaya cars were in the lowest third of qualifying top speeds. McLaren, like Aston Martin, is a Mercedes client. But unlike Aston Martin, McLaren makes its own gearbox and rear suspension because it is less expensive than purchasing the components from Mercedes. This is why they should be given greater discretion within the financial constraints. But in general, McLaren produces too few outside hangs in development and is months behind schedule. The team then hopes to spark the first big expansion stage of the season in Barcelona and finally get on a decent footing. Alpine is, again, another letdown. In contrast to McLaren's customer squad, the French are a factory team. They design their own car and engine. Alpine, on the other hand, do not close the distance. They hope to regain confidence during the next Grand Prix. What do you think? Are the teams on a good development path? Will anyone be able to challenge Red Bull? And will the battle for 4th exist this year? Or could we talk about a battle for 2nd and a battle for 5th? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for sticking with us till the end. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. This way, you'll make sure you're up to date with the latest Formula 1 news.